be here today to share some of my work, which I've titled Monitoring the Age of Restoration, Pairing Spatial and Field Data to Understand Salt Marsh Sparrow Habitat. So as you heard a little bit earlier, there is lots of restoration happening in the Northeast at the moment. The pictures on the slide are just some of the many techniques that are being applied. But despite their diversity, there is this common goal for most projects in building elevation and also restoring a more natural hydrology with the ultimate aim of creating or promoting resiliency in the face of sea level rise. While this is happening, myself and colleagues who work with tidal marsh birds are asking what will be the impact of these restoration activities on vulnerable wildlife, like the salt marsh sparrow. The salt marsh sparrow, as its name suggests, nests exclusively in salt marshes, and it is facing some of the same challenges that our salt marshes are facing, no surprise. Accelerated rates of sea level rise are increasing nest flooding, which is the primary cause of nest failure for the species. And without action, the species will go extinct mid-century. We don't yet know what restoration technique is best for restoring a salt marsh to promote salt marsh sparrow populations. But we do know that a few centimeters in elevation is really the difference between success and failure for many salt marsh sparrow nests. And so myself and colleagues are saying, well, this is a great opportunity for collaboration as these projects are happening. And so the Salt Marsh Habitat and Avian Research Program, along with the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture, are creating a pre and post monitoring decision tree to help restoration practitioners and specialists decide what is the best way to monitor for salt marsh sparrows at our project site. And so that tree will be published later this year, but it really just starts with first, do we have salt marsh sparrows, doing an initial point count, and then moving into looking at reproductive metrics. Do we have breeding females at a site? Are there nests at the site? Is there actually successful nesting? And the great thing about this is we're getting it out early, so hopefully we have an opportunity to learn together about how restoration is impacting our salt marsh sparrow populations, which will help us take conservation action in the future. And that's something I'm so excited about because we have this opportunity to collaborate now and learn together. And this is a current example of how we've been using that decision tree at a pre-restoration monitoring at Philbrooks Pond in Northampton. This summer, we did pre-restoration monitoring of the site, determined there were salt marsh sparrows there, looked at key reproductive metrics like the number of breeding females, and then monitored 12 nests at the site and got an idea of what nesting success looks like pre-restoration. They did runneling this fall and ditch remediation, and then we'll be able to go out in subsequent years and see what the impact has been, if any, on salt marsh sparrow populations. And then I also wanted to highlight a couple of fine scale metrics that we are talking about for monitoring for salt marsh sparrows before and after plan. And one of those is, of course, field-based vegetation, that labor-intensive metric. There are still a couple things in the field that we can't get with remotely sensed data, like the depth of the thatch layer, which salt marsh sparrows really is important for nesting with these birds, and that's something you can't sense remotely. So we've developed a protocol for assessing that. And then we're also really excited about this high resolution tidal wetlands cover layer, which is a CCAP data set. And the great thing about that is it goes beyond the general high marsh category in mapping and lets you take a peek at some of these vegetation species specific things happening in the marsh, and we know that salt marsh sparrows clue into certain vegetation species like Spartina pans, and so we're hoping to identify predictive features by using that map tool where they're likely to nest. And then the last thing, which I am most excited about, and people have already been talking about today, is water level. In the past, we've been looking at elevation, and while that's important for salt marsh sparrow nesting, it's really a proxy for what's happening. It's a proxy for the water level, and we know that at certain sites, they could be at the same elevation, but they could be experiencing totally different hydrological regimes. And so by looking at the water level, we really get an idea of where in the marsh is nesting possible and where in the marsh are salt marsh sparrow nests likely to be successful. And then I'll leave it at that by saying we would love to collaborate on future projects. There are a couple of resources on the slide. Feel free to get in touch with me, or more importantly, get in touch with my faculty advisor, Adrian Kovach, about working on future projects together. Thanks.